It's Christmas time, which means it's also crime time, or murder mystery time. Hooray! Not to be confused with thriller time, which we'll get to in a second. Also, to all the Brits, Irish, German, and probably other Europeans watching, I really hope you like my Christmas jumper. They didn't sponsor this, I just thought it was fun. Christmas and the winter season in general is a time for us to read murder mystery stories. But why? Before I talk about a few murder mystery stories that I really love, I kind of wanted to ponder at least on that question. What is it about murder mysteries that feels so cozy? We always put the phrase murder mystery and the word cozy together and often read these books at Christmas time, but it's kind of weird on the surface, and then it makes sense if you think about it. I mentioned thrillers before as well. Thriller, crime, murder mystery, and even horror, all of these genres kind of blend together and absolutely cross over with each other, but I do think that there is a real distinction to be made between murder mysteries and thrillers. So let's talk about that first. What is the difference between a murder mystery or crime novel and a thriller? By answering this question, we also kind of answer why murder mysteries are so lovely and cozy to read at Christmas time. I've read quite a lot of murder mysteries in my day, and not that many thrillers, but the thrillers I have read, I've really enjoyed. And I've come to realize that the main difference is that thrillers sit somewhere between a murder mystery and a horror novel. The thing that makes a murder mystery what it is the puzzle element. A murder mystery story often has someone in charge of the story. A detective, a sleuth, someone who's very smart, someone who has been handed a puzzle and they need to solve that puzzle, and we, the audience, are often invited to solve that puzzle as well. And it's the puzzle element that makes it so cozy. The fact that the puzzle is almost always a whodunit, who killed this person, just adds flair and drama to the affair. A thriller, on the other hand, leans more towards horror, in the sense that there's a lot of suspense. The main character is not someone who is in charge and has been handed a puzzle, but rather they're often someone who is in danger. They are under threat. They might be on the run. They might have to do battle with someone. They need to survive. They might themselves be a kind of anti-hero or even a villain. They might be the dangerous one. And there's often a mystery in that, and sometimes a twist surrounding the idea that the protagonist was actually an antagonist all along. The questions, the mystery element, the crime element, that's where it overlaps with murder mystery stories, but thriller as a genre is also something that ties up really nicely with horror, in the sense that there is danger, there is threat, there are things to worry about, there are high stakes, and reading it can be kind of stressful in that way. Thrillers are stressful, murder mysteries are not. In a murder mystery, the protagonist is almost always safe. They've been handed a puzzle and they must solve it. There might be stakes because there might be other people under threat, other people that might be killed. But those people are often also just puzzle pieces. Our protagonist is safe. We are on their side, we stand shoulder to shoulder with them, and we solve a crime. In a thriller, they are not safe. And they are often moving. They feel under threat, and in that way, they are a horror protagonist. Horror protagonists must be under threat. We must worry about them. We must bond with them in that way. Hope that they stay safe. And hope with them that other characters stay safe as well. The Last House on Needless Street by Katrina Ward is such a great example of that. This is a gothic thriller / pseudo horror novel. There are mysteries everywhere. Mysteries inside of mysteries inside of mysteries. And in that way it feels like a crime novel or a murder mystery story. But there is so much threat here. There is so much darkness and misery and bleakness that it feels more like a thriller or a horror novel. And it is both of those things. The works of Agatha Christie, however, are kind of the opposite to that. A murder has been committed, or maybe several murders, or more murders might come about as the story goes on, and you have a sleuth who's been tasked with solving that, and you've been tasked with solving it too. And that's what's so great about Agatha Christie in particular. Her stories hand you everything you need to know in order to solve the case. And if you're clever, you can solve the case before Poirot does, before Miss Marple does. In fact, here I'm holding Crooked House, my favourite Agatha Christie story. And I solved it. I solved it pretty early on. I had a hunch as to who the killer was, and I was right. I was so happy about that. I actually have a video about this you can go check out if you want to. Crooked House is amazing. Rian Johnson's Knives Out is my favourite film of all time, and I'm pretty sure this is the book that must have inspired it the most. That's one reason to love this, and the other reason is it's just absolutely brilliant, and the killer is Kind of a doozy. This was a real risk that Christie took, and she also called this her own favourite. So murder mystery stories like these make for great Christmas reads because they're essentially puzzles. And we like to do puzzles at Christmas. We sit around with our families and we do puzzles. We play board games. We compete to see who can figure out something first. And that's exactly what a murder mystery story is. You're competing with the protagonist to see if you can figure it out first. Unless you're watching BBC's Sherlock, in which case Stephen Moffat is much smarter than you and you'll never figure it out. Because Sherlock is shit. It's funny that I'm saying that because it makes me sound clever, but actually H-Bomber Guy convinced me it was shit years ago and he was right. So here are a few recommendations, including one that I'm currently reading and really enjoying. These big beasts are the books of Stuart Turton. I absolutely love these two books. I read The Devil in the Dark Water when it came out, and then for some reason I felt compelled to get the hardback of The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I think I got this off eBay in the end. His third book is coming out in March, and I cannot wait. I made a joke on Twitter ages ago about how his books are always reminiscent of indie video games. This, for example, reminds me of the indie game The Sexy Brutale, which is an indie game not enough people have played. Play it. And this reminds me of The Return of the Obra Dinn, the art style of which is based on a picture by M.C. Escher. I remember being in The Hague and walking into the M.C. Escher Museum and seeing that picture and going, ah. If you haven't played Obra Dinn, play that as well, and then read this. These are astonishingly clever, supernatural, or at least supernatural on the surface, mystery stories. If you've never read Stuart Turton, these are some of the most original concepts in the mystery genre you will ever read. And then we have the Honkaku genre. These are Japanese murder mysteries, and there are a lot of them. Japan is famous for its murder mystery authors and stories. I adore these. In fact, if I can gloat for like half a second, The Honjin Murders was the first time one of my quotes ever ended up inside of a book, just in the first page. Between the Irish Times and the Guardian, my quote's in here. Thank you to Pushkin for including that. I have been happy ever since, and it's been years. But I want more quotes. Maybe it's because I do video reviews now. People don't quote me as much. Anyway, I'm very clever, you should quote me. Japanese Honkaku murder mystery stories are very similar to the works of Agatha Christie. They are often puzzle box mystery stories with an eccentric Hercule Poirot-esque sleuth who is trying to solve the whole thing, or maybe a detective of some sort. I've enjoyed pretty much every single one I've ever read, and every time a new one comes out in English translation, I always look forward to it. With the exception of the Meiji Guillotine Murders, which I'm really sorry to Pushkin, I promised I would review this month, but I had to DNF it. I did not enjoy this, and I'm sorry about that. And then, as I've already said, we've got the Queen of Crime, Agatha Christie, the great murder mystery author. I have several videos about Agatha Christie and why she's so special, including a The Genius of Agatha Christie video, so go check all those out to get my thoughts on these two books and lots more. I haven't read every Agatha Christie book, I've read all of the big famous ones, and these two are two of my favourites. I've already talked about Crooked House and how it absolutely inspired Knives Out, and this is Five Little Pigs, which also appears in other videos, so go watch those. But Five Little Pigs is a Poirot story that not enough people talk about. When it comes to Poirot, we have Murder on the Orient Express, A Death on the Nile, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which I actually didn't love, and then people don't often talk about Five Little Pigs. It's not one of the big famous ones, but this one's my favourite Poirot story. Five Little Pigs is absolutely brilliant, and it's set in the summertime at a garden party, so it kind of works more as a summer read, but whatever. If you're missing the sun and the summer and you want to read a murder mystery at Christmas time, then yeah, Five Little Pigs. And right now, for Christmas, I am reading The Three Dahlias by Katie Watson. This book is a true love letter to murder mystery stories, to the golden age of crime fiction, to Agatha Christie herself specifically, I think. I picked this book up a few months ago and I waited until Christmas to read it because murder mystery story. This book is set in the modern day, in a world where there was a crime writer called Lettice Davenport, a golden age crime writer who existed alongside Agatha Christie. She's now dead, but she lived in a big stately home. In that home was a dollhouse, which she used to to orchestrate all of the murders in her stories. Lettice Davenport's Great Sleuth, her version of Hercule Poirot, was a female sleuth called Dahlia Lively. Dahlia could solve any crime, and she was the main protagonist of Lettice Davenport's stories. In the 80s, 3 films were made based on her books, and there was an actress who played Dahlia Lively and became famous for it. In the 90s and early 2000s, for about 15 years, another actress played Dahlia Lively in a series of TV adaptations of every single Dahlia Lively book. These 2 actresses are the Dahlias. It's very, very similar to how for so many people, David Suchet is Hercule Poirot. And now we have a third Dahlia, a young actress who has grown up in Hollywood, was a child actor, hit a bunch of scandals, and is now trying to rebuild her career by playing Dahlia in a big 21st century reboot film. These 3 actresses, who have all, or will have all, played Dahlia, are meeting at Dahlia's house for a big convention. The convention has been hosted by the fan club and the Lettice Davenport estate and her surviving family. It's a big to-do at the weekend to promote the new film. The previous 2 Dahlia actresses are here, and all 3 of these actresses are being blackmailed. That's the first crime of this book. Also, that might be the longest I've ever talked about the setup to a story, because there is a lot to unpack about the lore and the whole setup of this novel, but it's worth it. Very soon after arriving in this house, these 3 Dahlias find out that they are all being blackmailed. We move from perspective to perspective. In the first chapter, we're looking through the eyes of the oldest Dahlia, then the youngest, then the middle one. And as things start to come together, they find out they've all been blackmailed, and they've got to find out who's blackmailing them and why. And just as they feel like they're getting close to that, there's a theft at the house. Someone has stolen something very, very precious. So now we need to find out who did that, and if they are the same person as the blackmailer. The person that they think is blackmailing them suddenly drives off and leaves the estate. And then, not until about a third of the way through the book, maybe even more than that, maybe 40% through, the murder finally happens. We know there's going to be a murder. It's written on the front cover. But the murder takes ages because there's so much build-up, so much setup, so much love letter writing to the golden age of crime fiction. And it's all worth it. It's really, really engaging. This book is kind of like what would happen if David Suchet, Kenneth Branagh, and a third person were brought together to hang out at Agatha Christie's home for a big press release, and someone died there. And David Suchet and Kenneth Branagh are putting on their Poirot hats to try and solve this crime while also being blackmailed. It's so much fun. It's such a wonderful dedication to crime fiction, to the ways in which crime novels have been adapted to film and TV over the decades. And what's brilliant about it is, because it's kind of meta in the sense that it is a crime novel about crime fiction, a murder mystery that involves and leans into the tropes of murder mysteries, and the characters all talk and laugh about those tropes and how these sleuths always figure things out, blah blah blah. All of that means that Katie Watson gets to break those rules. How do you write a murder mystery story where all of the characters within your story are experts in how murder mysteries work, in how the plots work, in how the rules work, in how the tropes pop up? It's brilliant. Not only that, but there is a garden on the grounds of this house that includes all of the poisonous plants that were ever used in any Dahlia Lively mystery story. And the murder that finally happens about a third of the way through the book involves one of those poisons. So someone is getting poisons from this garden that are just readily available, which is a ridiculously dumb idea. And of course we have a list of suspects. Not just suspects of the murder, but also of the theft and the blackmail. Lots of questions. At the time of recording this, I haven't yet finished this novel, but I am really, really enjoying where it's going and how well you get to know these 3 actresses who all have played or will have played Dahlia Lively. I loved learning about Dahlia Lively and Lettice Davenport and all of the world that she created, the fan base that she created, the legacy that she has, and the lives of these actresses. There's a lot to enjoy here beyond the mystery element. This is a book that dedicates itself joyously to the murder mystery genre, to the golden age of crime. Love it. There you go, those were a few recommendations of murder mystery stories. A little tangent at the beginning about what I think is so special about murder mystery stories and how they're different from thrillers and why we read them at Christmas. And a little mini review of The Three Dahlias, which is a book I am thoroughly enjoying. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you're reading any crime stories or murder mystery stories at Christmas time. Tell me your favourite Agatha Christie story, I would love to know, because I probably haven't read it. As I said, I haven't read all of them, so let me know your favourite Agatha Christie book so I can get to it soon. Support me on Patreon if you'd like to. I'd love your support. My patrons are the best people, so come join the group of best people ever, and subscribe for books.